All I have in this world is my balls and my word, and I don't break them for no one. Do you understand?
G'day guys, Chaos Chronicles. All right, so today I thought we'd have a talk about the slot, right? So what is the slot? The slot is the pokey, the hole, segregation, timeout, naughty boys corner, whatever you want to call it. It is where you go when you do something wrong in jail. So I think out of my 8.5 years, I probably spent close to 4 years in the slot. So that is a long time. I have spent like years in the slot at one time. I actually got charged with an attempted murder, 2015, and I bet that, well, the charges got dropped actually. So the slot it's a whole nother world in jail that you can't even really explain unless you show it to somebody. So I'm going to use Port Phillip slot as an example, right? So when you go to the slot at Port Phillip, you've been in a punch on, whatever, the screws come and grab you and they walk you down to the pokey, right, which is called Charlotte. So Charlotte it is like a normal unit. It is like Swallow or Scarb South, Scarb North, has 2 tiers, with cells all around it. And then they've got what they call the spine, right? So every single person who gets locked up in the slot goes to the spine. And it is called the spine for a reason. It is absolute living hell that you cannot explain. So you get in there, you have a blanket, a mattress, and a bit of soap, and maybe one of those dodgy ass plastic toothbrushes that are like hard plastic. So you go in there, and there is literally, I think there's 12 slots in there. So there's 12 cells in there, and you are literally locked in there with nothing on LOPs, which is called loss of privileges, and you literally get nothing. You are allowed to have one phone call a day, and you are allowed out of your cell for 1 hour a day. So when you're out of the cell, you go on a run out. You might have someone else in the other run out yard. So at Port Phillip, they've got 2 run out yards, which is just a big yard with a big fence right down the guts of it. And so they run you out there. You have an hour's run out. In that hour, you've got to use the telephone, put any forms in that you've got to do, put forms in for phone numbers. It's just really, really hard to do what you've got to do in 1 hour. So you do that LOPs for 14 days. So you have no kettle, no TV, no nothing for 14 days. And then after that 14 days, they will put you into the Charlotte unit. Once you were in that Charlotte unit, you were going to be there for like a month. And then you are going to see SMU, which is Sentence Management Unit, or depending on your crime, what you committed in jail, you might be seeing MOU, which is Major Offenders Unit, which is for people that are a little bit stabby and a little bit hard to deal with. So usually those people are legit hard people. So when you're in the slot, there is also more trouble what you can get in. So if you are being insubordinate inside the slot, there is what they call a wet cell. And what they'll do is they will take all your clothes off you. So let's say, for instance, there's been a time when I flooded my cell in there. And when you flood your cell in there, you're flooding everybody else's cell. So it is a very common thing that happens in the pokey, and people are literally being insubordinate. They've had enough. Your whole life is turned off for 14 days. I have seen people come out of that 14 days with nothing, a different person. 14 days alone with absolutely nothing, no book. No, if you're lucky, you might get a book. Also, if you're lucky, you've got the Christian Fellowship that come around and they talk to dudes in the slot. And they might even give you a little bit of scripture out of the Bible. And believe me, when you've got nothing to read, you'll read that shit backwards just to get a little bit of reading in. But the slot is hardcore, and it literally turns people into different people. Like if you are a long-term slot person, so if you keep offending while you're in the slot, they're going to put you on long-term, which means you are going to stay in that slot 12 months, 2 years, whatever, depending on your crimes. So I know of people, I'm not going to drop any names, but I know of a lot of people that have spent over 10 years in the Victorian, in our prisons, over 10 years in the slot because they were very major offenders. One of them was an escapist, and the other one was a major offender outside, and they both spent over 10 years in the slot. And I can promise you now, they promised me that it changed them as a person. When you spend that much time with yourself, it's actually crazy the things you think about and what you do to keep your mind occupied. So what you got to do, for me, the number one thing is keep your mind occupied. So I'm always up. So they deliver your milk and a bowl of cereal in the slot at like 5 o'clock when the sun first comes up. The roosters aren't even roostering, and they're putting milk and some cereal at your door. So what I do when I'm in the slot, I just use it as a training camp to train myself up to be the biggest weapon when I get out of there. So literally you do everything what you see on the videos. You do lunges, you do burpees, you do chin-ups, you do push-ups, you do dips. You turn yourself into an animal, and you make sure, like you might spend 8 or 9, 10 hours sleeping. You make sure the rest of that 14 hours that you are out of that cell, you have to be occupied. Or I promise you, like I said, I've seen people come out of that 14 days a different person. If you've got to spend months in the slot by yourself, I promise you, you've got to buckle down and you've got to give yourself something that you can do every single day. You've got to get into a habit of doing things, and then you do that. But like my suggestion is, jail's a very, very horrible place. And like I always say, it's more horrible than any words can ever explain. And you better believe at that same time where you're training up to be an absolute animal, there's another 100 blokes at that same time that are training up to be the exact animal what you want to be. And they are going to use that violence. And unfortunately, this is the rare reality about jail, people, and people don't understand it. And like, there are certain rules and I actually know of this young dude. I can't remember his name. I wouldn't have dropped it anyway, but he died in the slot around 2016. They were starting to get visits to people that are in the slot. Anyway, this guy somehow got drugs in, had a stomach full of drugs. They burst in his stomach. He had a lot, and he died of a heart attack. This dude was like 22 years old. Went to the slot, never coming home, Like I always say, people, these are the realities of jail, and like people are dying all the time. People are getting stabbed all the time. You better realize that this is a real reality. And I'm going to be a little bit raw here, So all you boys that are out there right now, you're right on the fringe of joining your gang, you're joining a bike club. I suggest you assess your situation and just have a look at your surroundings, because, like, out of them 10 blokes, can you trust them 10 blokes with your life? 100%. If you can trust them with your life, go and join that brotherhood. But if you have 10 blokes there and you can't trust one of them, don't be a part of that brotherhood, because it's never going to be what you want it to be. And let me tell you right now, once on the outside looking in, it looks like a very beautiful thing. People are riding around on mad bikes, mad cars, mad girls, mad houses, mad clothes, mad shoes. It's appealing to some people. But what doesn't get told is the bullshit you have to go through just to be that person. It's a very dog-eat-dog world too, And like I always say, I'm not a preacher. I'm a prime example. And like, you don't want to be a memory. You don't want to be a memory. You don't want to, oh yeah, g'day, Mr. Joe Blogs. Your son was killed today in the slot, so he'll never be coming home. You don't want that phone call. Stuff that. And if you don't want to do this shit, guys, and this is the reality about jail, you need to stop and reassess your situation right now, because the world is horrible. That criminal world is shit, man. I'm telling you now, out of 10 blokes, I always say it. You might have a mad crew of mates. Out of your 10 crew of mates, 6 of them, 8 of them are going to lag you, dob you in for their own, 4 of them are going to try and get with your missus while you're locked up. There is no honour amongst thieves, must I say anymore, And it's putrid. People are lagging people. People are dobbing people in left, right, and centre. This world is a bullshit world that you do not want to be in. I spent 20 years trying to let everyone know how tough I am, and I can't even tell you. It feels like it's going to take 100 years to tell everyone I'm not like that anymore. But let me tell you guys, the hell I went through, you don't want to go through these hells. They're not hells that you want to go through. I'm not a preacher. I'm a prime example. Don't do what I did. Use me as an example and say, I'm not doing this anymore. Stuff this, man. What is this shit? I don't want to do it. and just have a think about it. Think about your kids, think about your mum, think about your girl, think about your daughter, think about your dad. Think about all these people that no one ever thinks about in the butterfly effect. What happens when you go to jail is it affects every single person in your family more than you will ever know. So like I said, I'm not a preacher. I'm talking about the slot, and I'm just letting you guys know that this isn't the shit that you want to do. Anyway, I've been Big Biff. This is the Chaos Chronicles. You guys have been absolutely awesome. You are the Chaos crew. I will catch you guys in the next video. And yeah, guys, all I've got to say is big things on the horizon. A big thing happened today. I'm not going to announce it because most of you guys will probably realize anyway, but big things are happening with the Chaos Chronicles. Watch this space. We out.
I am also the guy who decides if you and your friends walk out of here or not.